Sarah was fast asleep, the quiet of the night surrounding her in a cocoon of soft darkness, when a faint, almost hesitant knock at her bedroom door stirred her from dreams. Her eyes blinked open, adjusting slowly to the dim moonlight streaming through the curtains, and she glanced at the clock with a sleepy frown. 2:17 a.m. It was far too late for ordinary matters, too early for any reason to disturb the night's peace, and yet the urgency in the sound made her heart skip a beat. "Mom, can you come to the living room?" The voice was tentative, almost shy, but carried an undertone of seriousness that instantly wiped the fog of sleep from her mind. It was Liam, her 16-year-old son, a boy usually so confident during the day, yet now he sounded uncertain, even a little anxious. She rose, wrapping a light shawl around her shoulders as she followed him through the quiet house, each step careful to avoid the creaks of the old wooden floors. As she reached the living room, the soft glow of the table lamp revealed Liam standing there, clutching something tightly in his small hands, his posture tense, eyes wide and restless. There was a weight in the air, an unspoken tension that made Sarah's chest tighten, as though she could feel the magnitude of the moment before it was even explained. "It's important," Liam whispered, his voice barely above a breath, and the seriousness in his tone made her stop in her tracks, her mind racing with possibilities. Had something happened at school? Was he in trouble? Or was this something more personal, more delicate? The envelope in his hands looked ordinary, yet the way he held it, almost reverently, suggested it carried emotions too heavy for words, feelings that had been bottled up until now, ready to burst in the middle of the night. She knelt beside him, offering a gentle smile to calm his nervousness, though inside she felt a mixture of curiosity and concern, a mother's instinct telling her that whatever this was, it mattered deeply to him. Liam took a shaky breath, and as he spoke, his words tumbled out in a rush, slightly halting, but full of honesty and raw emotion. "It's about someone I really like. I don't know what to do." Sarah's heart softened immediately. She recognized the universal vulnerability in his voice, the same vulnerability she herself had felt at his age, when the world of emotions seemed enormous and impossible to navigate. She took his hands in hers, feeling the warmth and slight trembling of his fingers, and she whispered reassurance, encouraging him gently to trust her, to let her guide him through this storm of feelings that he was barely able to articulate. The night outside seemed still, almost holding its breath along with them, as if the world understood the significance of this quiet, intimate moment between mother and son. Liam pulled the envelope closer to his chest, hesitant to reveal its contents, yet desperate for advice, and Sarah felt a surge of protective empathy. She knew that these moments, small and delicate, were milestones in a young person's life, shaping not only the way he would experience love and attachment, but also the courage he would carry into the future. She thought about how fleeting childhood was, how quickly moments like this slipped away, leaving only memories and lessons behind. As she encouraged him to open up, to show her what had been written, she noticed the way his eyes darted to the floor, then back to her, searching for permission, for validation, for the assurance that vulnerability was safe. In that instant, Sarah felt a wave of tenderness, the kind that made her chest ache with both love and nostalgia, remembering her own adolescent experiences, the letters she had written but never sent, the confessions she had longed to make, and the heartbreak she had endured in silence. She realized that this envelope, this small piece of paper, carried not only Liam's feelings but a lesson in trust, courage and honesty that would linger in both their lives. Carefully, he handed it to her, his fingers brushing hers lightly, and Sarah felt the weight of responsibility in her hands, not just as a mother guiding her child, but as someone who understood the intricate, fragile dance of emotions between people who care deeply for one another. She opened the envelope slowly, savoring the anticipation, and as she read the carefully chosen words, she felt her eyes moisten with empathy and admiration. Here was a young heart learning to express itself, to bridge the gap between desire and fear, to reach out into the unknown with sincerity. Yet even as she felt pride and warmth, a subtle tension lingered, because the night itself seemed to pulse with expectation, as though it knew that something transformative was unfolding within the walls of their home. Liam watched her closely, his young face illuminated by the lamp's soft glow, and Sarah could see the mixture of hope, anxiety, and courage in his expression. She realized that this moment was as much a turning point for him, as it was a reflection of her own capacity to guide, nurture, and perhaps rediscover the simpler, yet profound truths of love and longing through the eyes of her child. The air was heavy with unspoken possibilities, a delicate suspense that stretched into the quiet corners of the room, making every heartbeat seem louder, every breath more significant. She thought about the lessons she would impart, the gentle guidance she would offer, and the importance of helping him navigate the tender complexities of first emotions without fear or shame. Liam's trust in her, shown in this late-night confession, was a gift, a rare and precious bridge between the past and the present, between innocence and the budding awareness of human connection. Sarah felt a rush of memories intertwining with the present, the lessons she had learned, the risks she had taken in matters of the heart, the mistakes and triumphs that had shaped her understanding of love. And in that quiet living room at this unexpected hour, mother and son shared a moment that would linger far beyond the night, a memory stitched together with empathy, courage, and the unspoken promise that love, honesty, and vulnerability were worthy pursuits at any age. Sarah smiled softly, giving Liam a nod of reassurance, her heart full, knowing that the path ahead for him was uncertain but navigable, and that this first step, this envelope, this confession, this quiet vulnerability, was the beginning of something meaningful, something that would teach him about trust, affection, and the beauty of expressing one's feelings openly. She handed the envelope back to him carefully, letting him feel ownership of his emotions while whispering words of encouragement that would resonate in his mind long after the night had passed, planting seeds of confidence and courage that could grow into lasting emotional resilience. As they both sat in the stillness, the house wrapped in the serenity of sleeping streets, Sarah realized that the smallest, most unassuming moments often carried the deepest significance, and that tonight, in guiding her son through a delicate emotional revelation, she too was reminded of the timeless, universal power of love, empathy, and the quiet courage it takes to open one's heart to another. And as Liam clutched the envelope once more, a mixture of relief and anticipation on his face, Sarah felt a tender hope blossom within her, knowing that whatever the future held for him, he had taken the first step into the world of sincere emotion with honesty and bravery, and that in helping him, she had rediscovered a piece of her own heart she had longed to reconnect with, a gentle, luminous reminder that love and courage often arrive together, softly, in the quietest hours of the night. Sarah sat with Liam on the couch, the faint glow of the table lamp casting soft shadows around the living room, and as she unfolded the envelope, her eyes caught the careful handwriting of her son, each word deliberate, sincere, and filled with the trembling honesty of a young heart discovering its first strong feelings. The letter spoke of admiration, of stolen glances in classrooms, of shared laughter, and moments that had left him longing for connection he hadn't dared to express until now. As she read, Sarah felt warmth and pride swell within her, mingled with a twinge of nostalgia for her own youthful days when emotions had seemed overwhelming, uncontrollable, yet utterly beautiful. Liam watched her intently, his eyes wide with nervous anticipation, fingers tapping lightly against the envelope as though it contained not only his words but also the weight of his courage, and Sarah could feel the tension in the room, a delicate balance of hope, anxiety, and excitement that made her chest ache with empathy. She gently took his hand, reassuring him, whispering encouragement that his feelings were valid, that expressing them was the bravest thing he could do at this stage of life. And as she spoke, memories of her own past rose to the surface. A friend she had once loved, a relationship that had ended too soon, and moments of longing that had remained locked in her heart for years, waiting for a chance to be remembered. As the night deepened, Sarah realized that Liam's request was more than a simple appeal for guidance. It was a bridge connecting her to her own experiences, reminding her of the vulnerability, the hope, and the thrill that came with opening one's heart to someone else. She looked around the quiet house, the stillness almost sacred, and thought about how quickly time moved, how children grew up in the blink of an eye, carrying emotions and desires that could surprise even the most attentive parent. Her mind wandered to David, her college friend who had once held her heart in a gentle, quiet way, and she felt the ache of unfinished stories, the bittersweet blend of happiness and regret that came from choices made too soon or too late. But the moment was not about regret. It was about presence, about being there for her son as he navigated the uncharted territory of young love, about guiding him gently without imposing her own fears or experiences. She suggested they think about the letter carefully, about the words he had chosen, and how to present them honestly and kindly, with clarity and respect, so that his feelings could be received in the best possible way. Liam listened intently, nodding, his initial anxiety softening into cautious optimism, as Sarah offered advice without judgment, showing him that sincerity and patience often mattered more than boldness or grand gestures. As they worked through the letter together, Sarah felt a strange blend of emotions: pride for her son, tenderness for his vulnerability, and a rekindling of her own understanding of love and connection. The soft, lingering warmth of memory intertwined with the present moment. Every time Liam paused, unsure of a word or sentence, Sarah would offer a gentle suggestion, not dictating, but helping him find his own voice, and in that collaboration, there was a quiet intimacy, a bonding that felt profound and timeless, bridging not only parent and child but also the echoes of past love that had shaped her own heart. Sarah's thoughts drifted to David again, the way he had smiled, the shared walks along the riverside, the quiet conversations that had held more meaning than words could express, and she realized that Liam's moment of vulnerability had opened a door to her own emotions, allowing her to feel again the gentle pull of attraction, the bittersweet ache of longing, and the subtle excitement of possibilities she had never dared to revisit. She imagined what it would be like to reconnect with David, to speak to him again after all these years, and a spark of hope kindled quietly within her, like a candle in the dark, delicate but persistent. Yet, as she glanced back at Liam, who was now holding the envelope with a more confident grip, she reminded herself that the night belonged to him, that this moment was his learning, his courage, his first step into the world of expressing emotions openly, and she was simply a guide, a safe presence to help him navigate the tender, sometimes frightening terrain of young love. As they continued discussing word choices, tone, and phrasing, Sarah found herself chuckling softly at Liam's earnest suggestions, the innocent yet serious way he wanted everything to be perfect, and she felt a swell of love that was both maternal and human, the recognition that nurturing someone's heart required patience, empathy, and a willingness to share a piece of your own. Suddenly, the quiet of the night was broken by a soft chime from her phone, pulling her attention momentarily from Liam, and she frowned slightly, curious and cautious, wondering who could be contacting her at this hour. When she glanced at the screen, she saw an unfamiliar number, followed by a message that made her breath catch. "I never stop thinking about you, Sarah." Her heart skipped a beat, and an unexpected rush of emotion surged through her. A mixture of surprise, nostalgia, and an inexplicable thrill. Liam, noticing the change in her expression, tilted his head slightly, sensing the sudden shift, though he didn't fully understand it. Sarah's mind raced. This was David, she was certain, though it had been so many years, and yet the timing felt uncanny, almost magical, as if the universe had orchestrated this moment, placing her own chance at revisiting old emotions alongside the delicate guidance she was giving her son. She smiled softly, a quiet warmth blooming in her chest, realizing that life had a way of weaving together past and present, teaching lessons, offering second chances, and reminding us that love and longing were not confined to youth or opportunity lost, but could reappear in unexpected ways, often when hearts were ready to feel them fully. Liam, oblivious to the depth of emotion swirling in his mother's mind, looked at her with a mix of curiosity and admiration, trusting her guidance, and in that moment, Sarah felt the unique, bittersweet blend of parental pride and personal hope, understanding that her role was both to nurture him and to quietly honor her own journey. She gently put her phone aside, turning her focus back to Liam, but the warmth of the message lingered, a soft glow behind her ribs, a reminder that love in its many forms could be reignited at any time. They returned to the letter, now both engaged in the act of shaping words that carried not only Liam's emotions but also the careful consideration of empathy and kindness, and with each suggestion, Sarah felt more connected to him, more aware of the preciousness of these shared moments that formed the foundation of trust and understanding between parent and child. The night stretched on, and though the world outside remained quiet, the living room felt alive with emotion, a tapestry of courage, hope, and subtle romance, as Sarah recognized that her son's first steps into the vulnerability of love had reminded her that her own heart was still capable of dreaming, of longing, and of embracing the unknown with grace and gentle courage. As Liam finally folded the letter, ready to present it to the girl he admired, his eyes sparkled with a newfound confidence, a quiet triumph over fear, and Sarah felt a surge of protective pride, mingled with her own wistful reflection on the journeys of the heart, knowing that in guiding him, she had rediscovered a part of herself she had long thought dormant, a part that still yearned, hoped, and cherished the delicate, powerful moments that defined the human experience. The room was filled with quiet satisfaction, the night wrapping around them like a comforting blanket, and Sarah realized that tonight had become more than just a lesson in young love. It had become a moment of reconnection, reflection, and the gentle awakening of possibilities that both she and Liam could carry forward into their lives, hearts open, spirits tender, and ready for the unexpected beauty of life's unfolding stories. And as they finally prepared to leave the living room, Liam clutching the envelope with a quiet sense of pride and hope, Sarah allowed herself a brief, private smile at the thought of the message waiting on her phone, a reminder that even in the stillness of the night, the heart's longings could be heard, answered, and perhaps fulfilled in ways she had never imagined, blending the lessons of yesterday with the opportunities of today, leaving both mother and son standing at the edge of new beginnings, hearts full and eyes bright with the promise of love in its many wondrous forms. The next morning, sunlight spilled gently through the curtains, painting the living room in warm golden hues, and Sarah awoke with a lingering sense of the night's events pressing softly against her mind, her heart still fluttering with a mix of maternal pride and personal nostalgia. And as she sipped her morning coffee, she found herself replaying every word Liam had shared, the way he had expressed his emotions with courage and honesty, the way his hands had trembled slightly as he held the envelope, and the intensity of his gaze as he waited for her guidance. And she realized that these small, intimate moments with her son were teaching her more about the depth of human emotion than she had expected, drawing her into a quiet reflection on the choices she had made, the love she had cherished, and the longing she had tucked away in her own heart over the years. And even as she prepared breakfast for Liam, she felt a gentle tug toward the phone, the message from the previous night still glowing softly on the screen, reminding her of David, the college friend who had once been the center of her youthful dreams, whose laughter and warmth had lingered in her memory for years, and now, unexpectedly, a spark of hope rekindled within her, subtle but undeniable, that perhaps the timing had aligned to offer her a chance to revisit old feelings, to explore a connection she had thought closed. And yet she pushed the thought aside gently, focusing on Liam, who bounded into the kitchen. With his usual energy, though his eyes betrayed a lingering nervousness from the night before, the envelope clutched in his hands as if it were both a shield and a key to unlocking a new chapter of his life, and Sarah smiled warmly at him, her heart swelling with both love and quiet amusement at how earnest and intense adolescence could be, the way emotions could feel so overwhelming and yet so beautifully sincere. And as they sat together at the table, she encouraged him to speak freely about his feelings, to imagine how the girl might receive his words, and to consider what he truly wanted to express, emphasizing that honesty and authenticity would carry more meaning than grand gestures or rehearsed phrases. And Liam nodded, listening intently, his gaze steady now, his confidence growing with each suggestion. And in that moment, Sarah felt a delicate bond between them, a connection strengthened by shared vulnerability, trust, and the subtle thrill of guiding someone she loved through a transformative emotional experience. And as the morning light grew brighter, her thoughts drifted again to David, to the walks they had taken along the river, to the quiet conversations under the stars, to the gentle moments of attraction that had left her heart racing in ways that were both innocent and profound. And she wondered what it would feel like to see him again, to hear his voice after so many years, to discover whether the connection that had lingered in memory could find new life in the present. And she felt a shiver of anticipation that was at once thrilling and frightening, a reminder that the heart never truly forgets, that it holds on to hope even when reason tells it to move on. And as she glanced at Liam, who was now scribbling additional notes on the envelope with renewed determination, she recognized that the courage he was learning to summon was not only shaping his own experiences, but also reflecting back to her, a timeless lesson about the resilience and audacity of love, about the power of honesty and emotional expression, and about the way life has a way of presenting opportunities for both guidance and personal awakening when we least expect it. And she felt her chest tighten with the bittersweet weight of memory and possibility, knowing that she had been given a chance not only to nurture her son but also to reconnect with her own long-buried feelings. And as Liam placed the final touches on his letter, folding it carefully and securing it in the envelope, she offered him gentle praise, her voice filled with warmth and encouragement. And he smiled, a mixture of relief, pride, and excitement shining in his eyes. And Sarah felt a tender ache in her heart, recognizing the beauty and fragility of these moments, the fleeting nature of youth and opportunity, and the quiet, profound impact of shared vulnerability and trust. and as the morning wore on, she found herself stealing glances at her phone, imagining the possibility of responding to David's message, wondering how the conversation might unfold, whether old bonds could be rekindled, whether the passage of time had softened hearts or left them unchanged, and the anticipation was electric, subtle but consuming, a mix of excitement, longing, and cautious hope, and she reminded herself that patience and reflection were as important in adult relationships as honesty and courage were in guiding her son. And as she prepared Liam for school, packing his bag and smoothing the rumpled folds of his clothes, she noticed a newfound confidence in him, a light in his expression that suggested the letter, the night, and her guidance had given him not only direction but also a spark of belief in the possibility of connection. And in that moment, she felt a deep satisfaction, a recognition that her role as a parent was both demanding and profoundly rewarding, filled with challenges and delicate triumphs, and she allowed herself to smile, quietly acknowledging that the night's events had shifted something within both of them, shaping Liam's understanding of emotion and love while stirring her own heart in ways that were tender, unexpected, and gently thrilling. And as they left the house together, the crisp morning air brushing against their faces, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose, a clarity of emotion, and an openness to the possibility that life, in its quiet unpredictability, could offer second chances, moments of reconnection, and opportunities to embrace feelings that had lingered unspoken for years. And throughout the day, her mind continued to drift between thoughts of Liam's letter, the guidance she had provided, and the message waiting on her phone, a soft undercurrent of anticipation and hope that made ordinary tasks shimmer with a subtle magic. And she realized that love, whether first love, lost love, or the careful nurturing of a child's heart, had a way of intertwining lives, memories, and emotions in patterns that were intricate, beautiful, and sometimes startling in their timing. And as the afternoon faded into evening, Sarah found herself replaying the small moments of the morning, the subtle exchanges of encouragement, the quiet laughter shared over minor details, the tender glances that conveyed more than words ever could, and she felt a gentle swell of gratitude, knowing that these ordinary-seeming moments were in fact extraordinary, shaping both her son's growth and her own emotional renewal. And when the school day ended and Liam returned home, Sarah noticed a lightness in his step, a confidence in his eyes, and she felt a mixture of pride and curiosity, wondering how the letter would be received, what emotions it would stir, and how this small act of courage would ripple through his world, influencing his future choices. And in those quiet evening hours, she reflected on the delicate interweaving of guidance, trust, and personal longing, understanding that while her son's experiences were his own, they mirrored, echoed, and awakened parts of her own heart that she had thought long buried. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Sarah allowed herself a private moment of reflection, a soft, hopeful smile playing on her lips, feeling the gentle, persistent tug of possibility in her chest, the knowledge that hearts could be reopened, that connections could be rediscovered, that courage and honesty had the power to transform ordinary nights into turning points. And as she glanced once more at her phone, imagining the words she might write to David, she felt a spark of anticipation, a quiet, thrilling sense that the journey of the heart was far from over, that love in all its forms, parental, youthful, romantic, was alive, dynamic, and waiting to be embraced fully. And as she prepared for the evening routine, helping Liam with homework, sharing dinner, and listening to his excited recounting of the day, she carried within her a soft, luminous hope, a recognition that life had a way of offering lessons and opportunities in tandem, and that tonight, tomorrow, and the days to come might hold both challenges and unexpected joys, that the courage of a 16-year-old boy had not only shaped his own path but had gently nudged her toward reflection, awareness, and perhaps a chance at rekindling something she had thought lost. And in that quiet, shared domestic space, filled with laughter, conversation, and small gestures of care, Sarah realized that the world was rich with emotional possibility, that hearts could heal, grow, and open again, and that the smallest acts, an envelope, a letter, a confession, a moment of attentive listening, could ripple outward in profound ways, leaving both mother and son forever changed, tender, and hopeful for the unfolding stories yet to come. That evening, the sky outside the house was painted in soft shades of pink and gold, and Sarah sat by the living room window, her thoughts drifting constantly between the events of the day, Liam's courage in writing and preparing to send his letter, and the unexpected message that had appeared on her phone hours earlier. The words, "I never stop thinking about you, Sarah," glowing gently on the screen like a beacon of possibility, and she felt her chest tighten with a mixture of excitement, nervousness, and curiosity, unsure whether to respond immediately or to pause and let her emotions settle, knowing that whatever choice she made could open a door she had not walked through in years, a door leading back to David, the college friend whose laughter and gentle presence had left a lasting imprint on her heart. And as Liam worked quietly at the dining table, reviewing his letter one last time, Sarah observed him with a mixture of maternal pride and tender amusement, marveling at the transformation that had taken place over the past day, from hesitant uncertainty to a quiet, steadfast confidence, a reflection of his growth and willingness to face the vulnerability of expressing his feelings honestly, and she realized that guiding him through this small but profound journey had also allowed her to reconnect with her own emotions, to recognize the longing she had carried silently for years, and to consider the possibility of second chances in her own life, a thought that made her heart beat faster and her mind swirl with hope and apprehension simultaneously. She picked up her phone again, her fingers hovering over the screen as memories flooded her mind. The shared walks along tree-lined paths, conversations under starlit skies, laughter that lingered in her chest long after it ended, the soft moments of connection that had once seemed so natural and now felt impossibly precious, and she realized that David's message had arrived at a moment when her heart was unusually open, touched by her son's honesty and the tenderness of the day, and she wondered whether responding could lead to a reconnection that might be gentle, meaningful, and deeply fulfilling, or whether it might reopen old wounds that time had tried to heal. Liam, sensing her attention drifted but not yet understanding its cause, looked up with a shy smile, his eyes curious and trusting, and Sarah returned a soft, encouraging smile. Feeling the subtle interplay of guidance and observation that defined their relationship, the delicate balance between nurturing and allowing space for independence, and she reflected on how small gestures, like a letter, a conversation, or even a moment of quiet presence, could ripple outward, influencing both the immediate present and the course of future experiences in profound ways. As the evening progressed, she decided to take a walk outside for fresh air, the gentle rustling of leaves and the faint scent of evening flowers creating a serene atmosphere that allowed her mind to settle and her emotions to clarify, and she imagined what it might be like to see David again, to hear his voice, to engage in conversations that had been suspended for years, and she felt a delicate flutter of anticipation mingled with nervousness, a sense that the heart, no matter how cautious or guarded, always responds to the call of connection and hope. Returning inside, she found Liam still focused on his envelope, now neatly sealed, the care with which he had handled it reflecting his seriousness and the deep respect he had for the emotions he was about to share. And Sarah felt a surge of pride, mixed with an almost wistful awareness that her own past courage had not always matched the intensity of her feelings, that she had sometimes let fear dictate her choices, and that this moment, watching her son embrace honesty and vulnerability, reminded her that it was never too late to allow the heart to speak. She sat beside him, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder, offering words of encouragement, reassurance, and love, and Liam looked up at her with a mixture of relief, gratitude, and quiet joy, and she smiled, realizing that the emotional connection between parent and child could be as profound and transformative as any romantic experience, that guiding, supporting, and witnessing courage was itself an act of love that shaped both hearts involved. And yet, as she glanced once more at the phone, the gentle glow of David's message still there, she felt a subtle pull in a different direction, an invitation to embrace her own life's possibilities alongside nurturing her son's journey, and she understood that this intersection of timing, emotion, and opportunity was rare, precious, and potentially life-changing, a reminder that while the heart could experience loss and longing, it was always capable of renewal and joy, sometimes in the most unexpected of moments. As Liam finally prepared to leave for school the next day, carrying his envelope carefully in his backpack, Sarah felt a mixture of anticipation and protective tenderness, imagining how he would present his letter, what reactions he might encounter, and how these experiences would contribute to his understanding of honesty, courage, and human connection, and she resolved silently to be there for him, ready to provide guidance and support while respecting his independence, aware that each small step of vulnerability and communication would shape his emotional maturity and resilience. That night, after Liam had gone to bed, Sarah finally opened the message from David, her fingers trembling slightly as she read the familiar cadence of his words, feeling the warmth of recognition, the thrill of reunion, and the soft ache of nostalgia all at once, and she realized that the years had only refined the depth of emotion they could share, that the experiences of life, joys, losses, heartbreaks, and discoveries had prepared her to meet this moment with clarity, grace, and openness, and she crafted a response carefully, balancing honesty, hope, and the quiet acknowledgement of what had been cherished in the past, aware that the dialogue might rekindle a connection, reveal new layers of understanding, and perhaps even lead to a gentle, enduring chapter of companionship and affection. As the evening shadows lengthened and the house fell silent, she reflected on the extraordinary nature of the day, the unexpected lessons drawn from her son's courage, the way his vulnerability had inspired her own willingness to feel and hope, and she marveled at the intricate interplay of human emotion that allowed one small act, a letter, a confession, a message, to influence hearts, awaken memories, and create opportunities for renewal, and she felt a soft, persistent warmth in her chest, a recognition that life, love, and connection were ongoing, evolving, and often surprising in their timing and effect. The quiet hours passed with Sarah sitting in reflective calm, alternating between thoughts of Liam, his letter, and the possibilities unfolding with David, and she recognized that emotional openness, patience, and the courage to engage with vulnerability were not only gifts to others but also gifts to herself, allowing her to experience life fully, to embrace longing without fear, and to cultivate hope in a world that often demanded caution and restraint. She thought about the intertwined lessons of the day, the importance of listening, guiding without judgment, honoring feelings, and recognizing opportunities for reconnection, and she understood that these lessons applied not only to parenting but to all meaningful relationships, to every encounter in which hearts were willing to be open, honest, and responsive, and she felt a profound gratitude for the clarity, guidance, and gentle awakening that this day had offered, for the way it had reminded her that human connection, when approached with care and empathy, could be transformative and deeply enriching. As night deepened, the soft glow of the lamp illuminated the room, and Sarah allowed herself to dream of what might unfold, both for Liam, whose courage had been nurtured and affirmed, and for herself, whose heart had been stirred and reminded of the beauty, subtlety, and enduring potential of love, and she felt a quiet joy in knowing that while the future was uncertain, the steps they had taken today, honesty, openness, reflection, guidance, and courage, had created the foundation for meaningful experiences, for emotional growth, and for the possibility of deep, heartfelt connection in all its forms. And as she finally set the phone aside, she took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment of serenity, aware that the journey of love, trust, and human connection was ongoing, unpredictable, and infinitely rewarding, and she drifted to sleep with a heart full of hope, a mind alive with memories and possibilities, and a soul open to the unfolding stories yet to come, knowing that both mother and son had learned, grown, and embraced the tender, powerful, and transformative nature of genuine emotion, and that life had a way of offering second chances, new beginnings, and moments of unexpected beauty when hearts were willing to feel, reflect, and act with courage, honesty, and love.